The following is a paid sponsorship from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Is something interfering with your happiness? Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? A lot of people are having those issues. A lot of people have always had those issues, and it's prevalent right now for all of us. I've had needs in my life where I had to go to therapy and get help because I couldn't function properly and I wasn't at my best. And BetterHelp is there for you. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Connect in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you will get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp at betterhelp.com/Bob. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. It's so important. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Bob. BetterHelp.com/Bob. Thank you.
Hey, it is Robert Saget. It is Bob Saget here. It's Bob Saget's Here for You. Thank you guys for all the nice things you've been saying. I've been meeting thousands of people and trying not to touch them too much or even fist bump them because knuckles can carry things. People wipe with their knuckle hand. With their knuckle hand, the other hand has knuckles, unless maybe it's just one. I'm not going to go there. But anyway, people have been incredibly kind. I want to thank you guys who listen. I love doing this thing, and I've got a conversation today with someone that I just love. I say that a lot, but because you know what? I'm allowed to, because I have a lot of love for people that have affected me in some way, or people that I don't even know. I met him mildly, not really, just online, but I went and watched his specials and read his book that comes out in October. The book is called Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die. And then the below that is, and other comforting thoughts on family, friends, sex, love, and more things that ruin your life. And he is Daniel Sloss, and he is one special guy. He has many specials out. 2 of them are on Netflix, and they're quite great. And then Special X, it's called, the letter X. It is on, I watched it on HBO Max, and it is so damn good. And he's 30 years old, and you feel like you're watching someone who's been doing stand-up for 20 years. And he's been doing it since he's 15 or 17, we'll find out. But he is so prolific and so likable, and yet he's irreverent and does stuff for his pleasure and love of stand-up. And he inspires me. People under 16 or 17 don't listen to this. I don't think a 16 or 17-year-old should hear this because it has some language and it has some stuff that you might take out of context or not understand it, not because you're not smart, but because there's a certain thing that happens. Look, I'm a dad. I don't know what you hear about my sensibilities, but the truth is I can easily recommend things for families and be entertaining for families as well as adults. And I would say this is more of an adult thing. I'm not putting you down if you're 12. I'm just saying, don't listen to this one. Just listen to it in 4 years. Are you cool with that? Please. Love to all of you. I'm letting in this amazing person, comedian Daniel Sloss. I got to do this, and I hate it when people do it, but you're so fucking good. And I knew your stuff, but not really. And then my friend, and he's also my publicist, Michael O'Brien, said, wow, he's about to start his United States tour. I went, holy shit, this is a gift. And then I was reading your book, Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die, which I smell a lot of merch on that title.
Yeah, man, it would be good. Like we were very concerned with the name. Well, I mean, I wasn't concerned with the title, but the people at the book making place, even though it was their suggestion, was like, how's this going to react? Especially because at the start, it was a fine title. It was interesting. It was like mildly antagonizing and caught your attention. And then the pandemic happened. And there was.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. What's the pandemic? I live in the U.S. We're not.
Oh, sorry. So there's
is it something in the news?
Yeah. It's this small minor thing. It's okay. It's pretty big. It's happening in the rest of the world, but we're dealing with it. We're doing okay with it, I think.
You had it, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I've had the vid. I had COVID. Yeah, it was. I'd had half the vaccine, so I got like reduced symptoms. But I still handled it like a coward. Anytime I can get sympathy, I do.
Are you sensitive when it comes to illness?
I wouldn't say so, but anyone around me would say yes. I would say
we're very much alike, except I'm twice your age plus, which pisses me off slightly. But
yeah,
I wasn't you at 39.
And our life expectancy is way less. So technically, like when we die at 50, so I'm. Like if we're both middle-aged for where we are.
I love that you think that way. And my wife, she's younger than me. There's a shock, right? And she's like, afraid that I'm going to die because I'm older than her by like 23 years. And I'm like, you could die first, you know?
You don't know who I know. You don't know my contacts.
You have, oh God, there's so much I want to talk to you about. You're so awesome. So you read my book, and your book reminded me of how I stream of consciousness talk.
Yeah, my book's coming out later on in the year, so we sent out, and we've got
October, right?
Yes, and our publicist managed to get me a quote from you, which was as a new comedian was very exciting for me. And then we spoke on Instagram, and you were very kind and friendly, and I was like, I should read his book because you mentioned that we had a very similar sense of humor. And I was like, I'll see how true this was. And then I'm just in bed with my fiance laughing and then just quoting out the most horrible bits of the book. I think we have the same approach and understanding of death and the same love of gallows humor and an understanding of how important it is. But it has to be done in the, correct way.
Because I'm in a time too where when I did an HBO special when I was, I guess 40, called That Ain't Right, and it had more F-bombs than it was a drinking game. How many times I said fuck, and I did it because I was at a college at NYU where I shot it, and I'm not that guy now, so it's not the same. And I'm sure you feel that. Are you the same way with your specials? You've done 4, but 3. But 4.
Yeah, I move on. Like it's like what a special is, no matter how proud I am of it at the time, like it's always a snapshot into my life and my thoughts at that time in my life. And then you grow and you learn and you change as a person. So I really struggle to be proud of any of my previous work because it's just still so close to me now, where I'm like, I know how much I've improved, and also I can't separate myself from that person. Like a more compassionate person would be like, oh, that was work that I did that was good at the time, and I can see the growth of myself now. Whereas I just like beating myself up with comparisons to other people in my art form, including myself, just because that's my motivation.
You also, I mean, we've had similar trajectory with death, and that. How old were you when your sister who had it's cerebral palsy or cerebral palsy?
I would call it cerebral palsy. I would also call it much worse things not on air, but the technical term is cerebral palsy.
Well, what would you say? What would be the thing you would call it?
Well, I mean, the joke in our family always is like it's spasticated, because when my sister was born, the medical doctor turned to my mother and said, your daughter is spasticated. And that was just such a jarring term, even at the time. Like that wasn't like just offensive in like the 90s. Like that was offensive back in like the 80s and 70s. but it's a medical term, and hearing it said by such like a, normally when you hear that word, it's like a drunk, horrible man yelling at somebody, or it's, you know, so it's out of cruelty. It's never a doctor in a lab coat with all of his degrees behind him and glasses saying your daughter's a spastic. So that was always a little bit of like not humor for us there. And I've always like, you know, because it's words that have power because of the reactions they get. But having a sister who herself was spasticated, it sort of gave me like the pass to say it. Like I never use it publicly, and I never would, because you can never trust how other people are going to use words. I know when I say it that I mean no malice in it, but I also don't get to decide how other people have experienced that words. I never lessen somebody else's. If they're like, that word's offensive to me, I'll be like, fair enough, then you've probably heard it a lot more than I have, and I'll definitely not use it around you. But I would be lying if I said I didn't occasionally use it in my own private conversation, because it's a horrible word with power, and I've got a close sort of like to it. But yeah, that would be mine. Or retard. Same goes for retard.
That's universal, and it would be like, I mean, you did a wonderful. I'm remembering, I think it was from a festival that you did a bit about doctors and how they think they're God, and you were talking about God. I'm not sure, because doctors do think they're God, and the person's. It's so great. People, what was that from?
That was also from. I'm pretty sure that was in Dark as well. That was.
You did it in Dark as well. Your special. Yeah. People need to see. Dark is on Netflix, right?
Jigsaw's on Netflix. Socio is like that. So we want to release Socio, but I technically don't own it at the moment. So we're working out. We're trying to sell that somewhere. And X is on HBO. X,
everybody needs to watch as soon as they're done listening or watching this right now. X is, I mean, they're all great. I have so many questions. You started at 17, but I still think it's 15 somehow. Is that accurate?
Yeah, like me and my dad argue about when I started, because I did, like, I've loved stand-up since I was 5 years old. Like, right. I think I was about 7 when I watched Bill Hicks for the first time.
Right.
And I had no idea what he was saying, but he was swearing. And that was the funniest thing in the world to me. It was mind-blowing to just, like, my dad and my mum, who said I couldn't swear, like swearing was a bad thing. If I came down and pretended to be sick, they'd be watching television, and it was a man on television swearing, and they laughed at that. And I'm like, oh, right. There's something else going on here.
Well, like, it's because I've gotten a lot of mistreatment for swearing. But some people thought I was doing it shockingly because I'd done family television, but that's what I did when I was 17. When I was starting it.
I'm from Scotland. I fucking love swearing. I disagree that it shows a lack of vocabulary. I think if you use it correctly, it can add levels and tone to conversation. I definitely swear too much. Like, I catch myself, like, if I listen to my like conversations, and also because I just use the word fucking so much, the amount of times that when talking about children, I accidentally use the term fucking kids.
Have you had the herd come after you with some of your stuff?
Not yet, but I'm always like, being a comedian is like being Frankenstein in a castle and just watching the villagers burn down that house and then run all the way over there and then burn down that house, and then you're like, oh, they found Dracula. Okay, they got the mummy. It's only so long before they find something wrong with this place.
They are on a search to destroy the evil, but that's not what comedians are. Most comedians are my favorite people.
Yeah, I think I also know people get, there's this mob out there that gets offended by everything, but I believe in like the Dave Chappelle approach to it, which is, if you read the news, Dave Chappelle has been cancelled several times.
Yeah,
but if you
and Bill Burr,
but none of them have been cancelled. They're just getting yelled at. Like, I think a lot of the time when cancelling is, I think normal people can be cancelled, like everyday regular people. Like, you can have like stuff you said in your past be held against you at your like current job. But a lot of the time when I see it happen to comedians, I'm just like, oh, like, a lot of people who were never going to see you under any circumstance because they
Right.
don't like comedy, they're so easily offended, they can't leave the fucking house. Those people that are angry, they were never going to see you. But a bunch of rational, sensible people saw the outrage, were able to go, all right, what's all this about then? I can form my own opinion. And then they, you know, do their own research, find the joke, and then hopefully go, oh, you know what, that was pretty fucking funny.
I also think when people watch you, and it was my response immediately, I'm going to say nice things to you. You're instantly likable because you're coming from a centered place. That's why you were attracted to Bill Hicks. Bill had a kid's face, and he was a compadre of Sam Kinison, as you know, and Sam was a whole different meteor. But Bill was questioning God, religion, life, and that was Carlin influenced and Sam influenced, but it was still Bill's voice, own voice. But you are, I haven't seen anyone that talks about relationships like you do. And I've seen people talk about my whole career, probably in the 70s, 80s, it started where people go, well, let's ladies go to the bathroom at the same time. But it would usually be a male comedian being misogynistic, and I would hear them doing it. And, you know, there wasn't any Me Too movement then, but I was like, why are you talking like that about women? But the moment I hear that piece in the Special X, I'm in love with it. My wife was just watching it, and, you know, the way you do things and lay them out is it's very healthy. It's very psychologically clever.
Well, I think it's important to, like, it's so easy for people to get offended and upset by things, right? Especially when you're talking about something like rape and sexual assault, which is horrendously common. Like, it's very, very.
Those things are the most upsetting, and that's why there's sometimes gallows humor about it. But that's so hard to do it because you're hurting.
And I knew every night I was going up and doing X in front of a live audience, whether I liked it or not, at least 50% of the audience was affected by what I was talking about. And
it's very affecting the end of it. And I won't spoil alert it. It's so weird that your book, it's just, you know, and it's funny because I kept looking that everyone you hate is going to die, which again is not available yet, but it's not long. It's October. We can make it.
Yeah.
It's so good because it's different than your stand-up. It's more stream of consciousness, like my book was.
Yeah.
Like did you have issues with your editor or publisher of, oh no, you're not using right grammar, or you're talking like you speak?
Yeah, well, because I didn't ask to write the book. I never thought I'd write a book in my life. Like, It was just a lovely man called Peter Gethers came over, and he phoned. I think it was after Dark and Jigsaw had come out. He phoned and said, "Are you interested in writing a book?" And I was like, "I don't really have anything to say." And he was like, "Well, that's not true." And you know, we wanted to sort of follow on from Jigsaw, to talk about relationships, but different types of relationships. And I was like, how do you want me to write it? And he was like, man, just write. I'll give you a topic and you just write, and then I'll tell you how that is. And so I would do that, and I'd type for a bit, and then occasionally, like, I'd go back through it while drinking a whiskey, and then I'd take a couple of days off, and then I'd go back through and I'd go through it stoned, because just to approach it from many different angles. And then
was shooting up the final edit.
I've got it. It's not a Scottish book by a Scottish author unless the last 3 chapters are done on the gear. It's got to be. That's how we get the grants over here as well. You've got to prove that you
can get an 8-ball.
Yeah. And then, like, I sent it through to him, and I was expecting, like, really heavy, like, not criticism, but like, Jesus Christ, this is what a comma's for. You have no idea what hyphens are. Please stop trying to use them. Parentheses are wrong, and all the spelling mistakes. And he was just kept being like, yeah, that's great. And here's the next chapter. And I'm like, oh no, man, I need way more feedback. Like, you don't understand. Like, I know I'm confident when I'm on stage. And the reason that's because I have written this bit over and over and over and over and over again, and performed it over and over again. Like, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff. Whereas you can't just tell me that I did well on my first go. I need 15, 16 edits before I'll believe anything. But he was very nice, and And then I think by the end of the tour, I was just like, writing the book, sorry, I was just writing many parts of it, like whiskey drunk on airplanes, being like, whatever I write is gold.
And then you're hoping to get some strike throughs.
Yeah.
I got some of those. Then they asked, make it more sensational. Do some things, and I did, and then I would talk about things like on the show Full House that I had a sitcom that was only in Europe on Sky One in England.
It was on I can correct you. It was on Disney Channel when I was
so that's the new.
Yeah.
And then Netflix was the other one, Fuller House. I have to look up my own credits. I know yours.
Yeah. I'll do it. We could just do each other's. It's it's IMDb swap. Less kinky.
Can we do that? Can we just IMDb swap?
Yeah, just to have each other's careers for a bit.
No, you don't want mine. I want yours because then
I live in Scotland, man.
Well, I don't know if I want to drink that much whiskey to write a book. But I thought, I was on. I think I definitely drank while they say to write in the morning, but morning for us is like noon, right?
Yeah, but maybe I think it's like depending on what your sleep cycle is, you come out. I did find that was the best time to. Well, in fact, you know what? I'm saying that I don't know. I still don't know when, because I don't know how the book is. I've had people tell me that it's good, but for me, it's the audience reaction. Like that's who I trust. I don't trust the booker or the agents or whatever about which jokes are going to work. I trust the audience. So it's been very nice to have all the people that I pay to tell me nice things, telling me nice things. It's very nice of them to do that.
Mine tell me the truth. I don't always like it.
So you're telling me to go off that, not do that at all, not recommended?
I think it's good to have your ass kissed sometimes. I mean, we need it a bit because I know that how confident you are on stage. You also make it very clear in everything you say that you're also insecure and reflective. And even your book, I mean, you admit that you're not quite, you're a work in progress, as we all are.
I also think confidence is, I think confidence is so easily faked. And it's a nice thing to pretend to be. And the first person you convince when you fake confidence is yourself most of the time. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a quick route to becoming an asshole. Like it's if you stay on the confident path long enough, you'll eventually go into the woods of arrogance, and it's very hard to find your way out of there.
And you talk about it, and I feel exactly the same way in so many ways. We have to hang out at some point. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, you're LA based, right?
I am, but I'm on tour around all the U.S. right now, and your tour is. I do have to say that the Hubris tour is starting. Literally announced just a couple days ago. So that's where we're recording. This is a recording, and that's how it works on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
on the interweb. So your tour is like fantastic. You're playing some wonderful spots, and I've played some of them and you're gonna love it.
Oh man, I can't wait. We got to do our first American tour about 2 or 3 years ago, just before the pandemic kicked off. And I've been gigging in America since I was about 22 or 3, just some comedy clubs. Like Comedy Works in Denver was always nice to me.
Love that place.
It's one of the best. It's truly one of the best.
I'm going there, and I don't know when.
Aye, the staff there are great. I've done some hilarity bites up in what's it called? Up in Cleveland. I've been to a bunch, and it's been nice to play the comedy clubs. But obviously, after Netflix, there was like a boost.
Right.
And then we got to do the theaters, and like American audience. I mean, you can see why American comedians never fucking leave America. Like for so long, everyone in the UK or Australia or Europe, or when we do comedy, like the big goal is America. And occasionally some Americans will come over to the UK every now and again. They'll stop by and they'll do an Australian tour. And then you're like, why is it never as important? And then you walk out on stage in Chicago or Philadelphia or New Orleans, and it's 2,000-3,000 people who have the energy of Americans. Like they're just, you are a entirely different breed of people to the rest of the world, but you're so comedy savvy. Like it's obviously a very easy thing to stereotype, say all Americans are stupid and dumb, and that's the easy sort of punch.
I'm just using that soundbite, just that.
Yeah, and that's it.
Out of
Comedian
context.
says,
That's
"Oh
it.
God, the pitchforks, they're coming for me."
Oh, they're going to have tiki torches.
Yeah. But the America's so comedy smart, and I think it's because you've had stand up there since the 40s, 50s, and all, like, you know, when you think about the greats, 90% of them are American. So even like your dumbest people still have a good sense of humor and this just this love of laughter. Like, it's such a great place to gig.
Well, I think it's been true of everything when you look at all the comedy that came out of England, which I always wished I was from, and Scotland too. But London and it really was a mecca for the people I looked up to.
Yeah, Monty Python was
That was my jewel in the crown. I've had Eric Idle on this podcast, and he's one of the few people, the only one that I had in my house. He says, and I'm not going to do his accent because I do everything bad. You do a good American accent.
I do a good Valley Girl, very stereotypical American, and that's the only one I can do. Like, whenever people ask me, like when I go to LA, my agent asks me to do auditions in an American accent. I'm like, unless I'm going for a cheerleader, I can't do a male version of an American accent. I just can't. I just make it so stereotypical. And I never want to give Americans the license to do their terrible Scottish accent back at me.
The Scottish accents are just, I mean, Outlanders changed my wife's life.
Yeah?
Yeah, she just wants to live with Jamie, whatever. I don't know. It's very upsetting. He's naked. He looks good. I can't take it. I'm tired.
Yeah. Well, my man, bring her over and she'll see that we are not like that at all. And she'll come crawling back once she sees what we really look like.
Well, there's a lot of beer,
yeah,
and a lot of really good whiskey.
A lot of fatty fucking foods.
There aren't as many fat people there, I don't think, as we have here, or they keep them locked up.
We do, but just because you guys do such a good job of it, that you're the focal point of it, that we always feel bad. But no, we do get some.
But then the other side of that is I
like deep frying a lot of food, and you know, we deep fry pizzas and Mars bars and ice cream, and you know, you can go into any fish and chip shop in Scotland and then just give them money and they'll deep fry whatever you give them within reason.
I feel bad just now that I said the word fat. You know, that's where I'm at right now. I've got a monitor. I got another hard drive going because I've been body shamed. You know, and I don't even talk about it in my stand-up ever. You know, it's not. But
I don't think in that instance there, neither of us were saying anything negative, and I also think fat isn't an offensive word. I think it's how you use it, as is the case with all words. I don't think there's any truly inherently offensive words. Well, I mean,
that would be like your doctor saying in America, they would the incorrect way to describe your sister's dilemma would be if a doctor came in. It would be a Monty Python American bit, which is I've got some good news and bad news. First, the good news is your daughter's a spaz.
There you go.
They would do we do abbreviations of incredibly upsetting words.
We did. There was was a big one over here for a while.
For Mongoloid?
Mongoloid, yeah.
But I've tried to explain this to my daughters. That it's a very derogatory term about people that are they have serious mental issues and also disfigurative often, correct?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But that's a horrific thing to it's so funny that it's not funny. I don't find it funny now. I don't find any of it.
When you grow a bit more, and you know, I think it's was it Steve Martin who said the joke, which is when you're young, you make loads of jokes about cancer, and then when you're older, you know people who died of cancer. It's like as you grow up and you suddenly realize, you know, it's not that what we used to say necessarily had any callousness in it or evil or malintent or anything like that, but it's, you know, it wasn't necessarily devoid of empathy, but it was certainly lacking in less empathy than we have now. Like when I was young, I used to do lots of fat shaming jokes, which now when I look back, and those are online, like you can see those videos of me doing jokes.
Yeah.
And I leave them up there because I mean, that is me. And I did say those things. And also I did think those things as well. You know, they're there. And I'll do the same thing most comedians do, which is I'll not hide behind, but I'll proudly stand behind the defense of it was a joke. And I did mean it as a joke. But it's probably not something with the knowledge I have now that I would bother to joke about anymore. Now that I'm a bit more understanding, and you pick the victims of your jokes with a bit more precision, as opposed to people that normally get the shit. Let's go after the people that don't normally get the shit. Let's start punching up instead of punching down, sort of thing.
I'm more of the victim of my own stories now. I'm telling more. It's different. It's a more evolved stand-up than I've ever done. Rodney Dangerfield was a friend and helped start me out. And Rodney would always say, if you make fun of yourself first, man, then you can make fun of them. But you can't do anything till you make fun of yourself first.
Yeah, I think it's hard to explain to people, like, especially as a comedian, the things we find funny are the worst things, because comedy is about shock and surprise. So when comedians are talking together, we've all got the same 50 jokes milling around in our head. When somebody says something, we know, it's some of the best bits of late night conversations with your comedian friends, when you just riff on one bit and it's the one punchline, but you're finding different ways to get to it and you're making it up. And it's not about making an audience laugh, because we all know how to make them laugh. It's about making each other laugh. And the only way I can make you laugh is by saying something that not even you would fucking think of or even dare to say. So you just end up saying, you go way further than you ever would in any decent conversation with other people that you love and trust. The amount of times I go to my fiance bed, I'm terrified to show her our WhatsApp conversations, because I'm like, sometimes we just get hung up on one news article or one thing that one of us said, and it just turns into this horrible 10 professional comedians saying the worst things they possibly can to get the reactions. And if I was to repeat them on stage, or if anyone were to read them over my shoulder on a
or
bus,
even here, I mean, they would get picked up, and
we'd be ruined.
I'm deleting texts all the time because I'm saying what I don't believe, what I don't think, but I'm not allowed to say it. And that's like your mother said, don't curse. My mother said, don't curse. And that's the formula. If you have a comedic personality and you're an outsider, the way you look at things, or an observer, that's you're filthy. I mean,
Why
you have that gene?
It's also like the thing I would really wish people who were like, I understand the idea of not wanting to offend people and putting like trigger warnings on shows, just in the sense that it's to try and let people know that, hey, we're going to cover this subject matter, and this subject matter might make you feel bad, and we don't want to catch you off guard. But I also think there's also some responsibility on the other side. Like, I remember when I was a kid, after my sister died, people being very, very gentle around me with anything to do with death, anything to do with sisters, anything to do with like disability, like walking around me as if I was a bomb waiting to go off. And it was a level of sensitivity that I wasn't enjoying. I was like, I would much rather we all spoke about this very freely, and like it's those emotions, like, don't get me wrong, like sometimes somebody would say something about a disabled person, it would remind me of my sister, and I'd get upset, but I would never blame that person for saying that thing. Like, those are my emotions, you brought them up, like, and you brought them up, and it sucks that you brought them up, but I would never blame you for making me feel those things. And I think a lot of the time with good audience members, and I learned this from doing X everywhere, and I met so many survivors out there, so many of them, though definitely triggered by what was being said on stage and whatnot, were able to sort of understand that it was what angle the joke was coming from. It wasn't an attack, it wasn't punching down, it wasn't any of these negative sort of, like, when rape is normally used as a punchline, it's always at the victim's expense, never at the sort of attackers. I think with comedy, you can talk about literally anything, as long as you are approaching it with, and it sounds counterintuitive, like a level of compassion, even in the darkest jokes. Mm-hmm. Like, you're saying the dark jokes, not because the dark thing is funny, but to try and bring the person who's currently in that dark thing out of it. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can do it is to joke about the darkness, if that makes any sense. I feel like
it makes all the sense in the world. You're talking to a mirror right now.
Right.
I mean, you're much better looking, but I'm going to get work done to look like you. Next time you see me, I'm going to look exactly like you. It's going to be so weird.
I can't wait to do that Zoom call. Just me confused, like I
Right.
can't understand why I'm on both screens and why do I have an American accent?
Bob, are you doing this with Snapchat filters? No, it's the new me. That's me doing a Scottish man.
Not the worst one I've heard. Certainly not the worst one.
The following is a paid sponsorship from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Is something interfering with your happiness? Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? A lot of people are having those issues. A lot of people have always had those issues, and it's prevalent right now for all of us. I've had needs in my life where I had to go to therapy and get help because I couldn't function properly and I wasn't at my best. And BetterHelp is there for you. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Connect in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. Send a message to your counselor anytime. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. So many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you will get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp at betterhelp.com/Bob. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. It's so important. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Bob. BetterHelp.com/Bob. Thank you.
So I'm friends. I name drop a lot, which makes me repugnant. But Craig Ferguson has been a friend for a long time. And you remind me of him not in any other way except probably that you're Scottish and smart and stream of consciousness. I would think that you are you friendly with him?
I've met him. I've done it. I did his show before he
Yep.
left, which I was very, very happy to do because obviously it's a fellow Scot with a late night American TV show. We were all very proud of him.
Are you throwing up? Are you throwing up in your mouth right now?
I was being sincere about another Scottish person, and it's just very hard for us to do that. We're all
And to say that you like him.
Yeah.
Because there's no camaraderie in your country.
No, we only unite when we want to hate the English together.
Oh my God, you have to have a common enemy. America's great because you could pick any city and they hate the city next to them.
Yeah.
Please continue. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine. I'm looking forward to. I've not gone there yet, but just based on all the American comedy I've watched, I cannot wait to go to Jacksonville, Florida, to find out why it is the butt of every single.
I was there, and you're playing the Palace Theater. No, the Florida Theater.
Yeah,
the Florida Theater is where I was. I think that's where you're playing. That's pretty positive.
Yeah, we're still confirming some of the ones. So
okay, but I was there, and there are many places. I actually had a lovely time because I was just one nighting it in a bunch of theaters on that little run, and you'll love it. You'll love every single gig you do, and you'll be in places that are like, wait a minute, I don't think that 3/4 of this audience looks at life the way I do, but it doesn't matter because you have the same philosophy I do. Is you want to entertain them,
yes,
and have a conversation with them. And they're in your living room, and you're in their living room, and you're having this discourse, even though you're the one talking. It's interchange.
Yeah, it's a fucked up conversation, but one of the only ones I'm good at.
But I'm like that in a room sometimes with people, aren't you?
Yeah, like I can tell.
It's terrible.
It's like I don't know. I can always tell the horrible moment when I'm telling my fiance or any of my loved ones like a story from my life. And like 40 seconds into the story, you can tell that you've already told them this story before. Like they just have that. So they don't say anything. They're very nice about it. They know how important it is to you to tell fucking stories.
It's on your jukebox.
Yeah, so you start telling the story and they go, and I've never stopped, even though I know I've told them the story. They know the fucking punchline. There's this silent
It's your
agreement.
playlist.
Yeah, they're just going. My fiance, she's just sweet. She's just like, well, you like telling the stories, and I'm like, oh my god, like the level of narcissism you must have to put up with. Like, it's one of his favorite. He likes talking. What can I say?
I was looking online at somebody who's promoting my gig, running from something from a special I did a couple specials ago, and my wife was standing next to me, just reciting it verbatim. I have to ask you: do you have a photographic memory?
Um, oh man, I've got a very, very good memory, but I also at the same time smoke a fair bit of
So you
weed.
do. That's what I had to ask you. Your Hubris tour
Yeah.
campaign is the most pro-smoking thing I've ever seen. I mean, you're a dragon. You've got your dragon, which is Scotland, Loch Ness Monster, having a drag of a cigarette with no filter. And the steam that's coming out of your nose is you're fueling this engine that's on the road. But
Yeah, but
it is.
I didn't take any of those connotations in when we took that photo. All that photo was, that's not even smoke. That was back when, that was like 3 years ago when I was vaping. And it was just one of the shots. I was just like, I just want to get, because man, I know you shouldn't say this, but I say it as a stand-up that watched Bill Hicks. Smoking's cool, right? It's always going to be cool to me just because of, I mean, because of Bill Hicks, because of Dylan Moran, an Irish comedian, like Ed Byrne, one of my favorite comedians, smoked
Right.
on stage. There was this generation of comedians that got to smoke on stage. And that is, for me, like, that's the underground coolness, the rock and roll bit of comedy where it's, you know what, someone on stage smoking, drinking, and telling you what they think. And as somebody that grew up during, well, now that we know smoking's absolutely terrible, there's no smoking indoors, there's no smoking comedians anymore. And
Well, Dave Chappelle does when he wants.
which is again, which adds to the coolness of it, because his thing is just,
It's
what's
going
the fine?
one more
Yeah, I'll
pass.
pay it. Yeah, great. Yeah, how much does it cost? You can smoke anywhere if you can afford to smoke there, like, you know. So I just chose that photo just because I was like, maybe that's slightly cool, and then
It's
realized we
badass.
cannot,
It's very badass, and you can't take your eyes off it because you don't see it often.
and we can't advertise it on Facebook because even though it's just vape, even though we were like, oh, we photoshopped in it afterwards, which we didn't do. We couldn't advertise it in parts of Australia. We had to change the image because it was, people thought it was me promoting smoking, and I hadn't. It never occurred to me.
But can't you just say this is I'm vaping. This is not a cigarette.
I know, but then the poster becomes way less cool. You can't just have that poster and then like a little asterisk, like he's vaping. Like,
It does well in California. Your California
Yeah.
leg. So everything I've seen you talk about, I did not get the fiance thing. Did I miss it, or is it new?
It's new. It's new. So I have a back catalogue of material. Like,
I thought you were going to say women.
also true, but less proud of that list. Also not available on Netflix anymore. Because the Edinburgh Fringe is here, you write a new show every year. That's just sort of like the rule. And
That's what I can't even get, because I'm a 3-4 year guy.
Yeah.
And I do other stuff, and then I'm so impressed by how prolific you are. Was that you at the start? You just were able to write another hour? That was the Edinburgh Festival that you were like selling out like nobody ever had for like 9 years straight or something crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was starting in small rooms. Like my first year at the festival, I was playing to like 60, 70 people a day, which is still great to have during the Fringe. But man, my first show sucked. My second show sucked. My third show was all right.
Yeah.
I never had an hour worth of material. I had 20 to 30 minutes of material that I fucking padded out and put other stuff in. But it then made me write a new show for the next year, which was still not great, but it was slightly better than the years before. And then because it's so easy to not have a work ethic in this job because we're self-employed. And as long as, you're getting by, you're doing well and you're happy where you are, like, I find myself getting incredibly lazy sometimes. And the fringe was always a good thing of like, here's the next deadline. You have to have it done by next year. So by the time the Netflix specials came out, I was touring another show, and they wanted Dark and Jigsaw, so I went back and
At the same
those.
time, which doesn't happen.
No, not often, but they were very.
Happened with
very
Dave within a year, but
aye, but he's
pretty cool, man.
That's what he was. Oh man, I was blown away. I still remember exactly. We were in Bulgaria when I got the news. I just come off stage, and my agent texts me being like, "Oh, call me immediately," and I'm like, "Oh well, my mum's dead." Like, I mean, if somebody says call me immediately, and they're like, it's never a good thing. It's death of a loved one. And I go backstage, and she was like, "Netflix won 2 of your specials," and I think I cried in a shower backstage at a green room, and they drank some vodka to celebrate. So
How was the audience? How was Bulgaria?
Oh man, great. There's like the thing I wish more comedians knew, and you especially should know this as somebody that has like a genuine international appeal because of all the stuff you've done. Europe is desperate for comedy, man. Like there's generations that have grown up on the internet, they've grown up on Netflix, and they've grown up just watching all the American sitcoms and all of the UK ones. So first time I did a European tour was about 4 years ago. And I managed to sell a lot of it out just from Conan appearances. Like, and just my 5-minute spots are going to, because people in Lithuania and Bulgaria and Estonia, they're just on YouTube watching all the American talk shows or whatever. So they can't believe that you fucking turned up. So you go to Bulgaria and you go to this like little underground comedy club where you're like, nobody here speaks English. There's no way this is going to work.
Yeah, that's my big question.
Man, they speak, it's second to none to them. Like they speak 2 or 3 languages, and because they've watched stand-up for so long online, they get it. They understand nuance, they understand tone, they understand sarcasm, they understand filth, and they don't have the same sensibilities that we do. So you can go way further in a lot.
Oh, that's so horrible. I'd be so bad. They're enablers.
Well, yeah, man. So, like, when I did in the show X, there's one bit where I'm talking about sex education, right? And that's not the controversial bit of X, right? That's not the hard-hitting topic. Sex education is something that's very important and necessary. So you do that joke in the UK and it gets a laugh. You do the joke in like Germany and France and Norway and in America, it gets a laugh. Man, we get to Slovakia and I'm doing jokes about sex education. They're like, "What the fuck is sex education?" Like, you're like, "What?" And like, that's the controversial bit. They're like, "You want to teach kids about sex?" And we're like, "You don't?"
Right.
Yeah. So you get some real interesting interactions with the audience where they find it hysterical that, you know, I get so wound up by the fact that their 15-year-olds don't get any sex education. They're like, "Oh no, you're the freaky backwards man."
I had an experience where I played London at the Leicester Square Theatre.
Great room.
And it was lovely. And I had such a nice time, such a great audience, such a nice show. And I had a song that always used to do music my whole show. And then I grew up and took the guitar off and then learned to do an hour and then a half an hour of music, whatever. I always do music. I love it. So comedy songs. And so I did a song, and it was a kind of a love song about a transgender person that I met in a bar. Yeah. And it was meant to be compassionate and loving, but we don't wind up together. And I read a review, and it was all favorable but the room stopped when Bob did this. And I read it, and I went, wow. And this is a while ago. So this is 5 years ago. So no, it's 4 years ago. And I never did it again because I agreed with the writer. And
oh, wow.
I agreed with the response. I was going, what did I do wrong? What did I do? There's compassion in it, but it's the talking about it. You know, it was woke, pre-woke, you know?
Yeah, but it's also, I think when you're talking about, I will defend any comedian's right to do jokes about anything, But the thing I'll always then ask the comedians, like, it's your responsibility to do justice to that topic. Like, you can't go for the jokes that everyone else does. You've got to be a fresh voice to it. If you don't have a new, interesting take on it, then don't fucking bother. Don't rehash stuff that people have already done. And things are, changing as times. I've done so many jokes where I look back and I go, I cannot believe I got away with saying that.
Yeah.
I can't believe, not only that, I can't believe I wrote it and thought that it was fine. I think that's the most annoying bit about like the cancel culture mobs is you're like, oh man, like I know what I said and I know it was fucked up. Like I don't need to be publicly lambasted for this. I understand we occasionally need a face so that the whole world can go boo, and now we know that thing's bad. But people, despite what the media will tell you, I agree with what you say in your book, which is I think most people are good, right?
I think most people are good, right?
I think they are, and they can get angry and they can get annoyed and stuff, and
they can be murderers, and
they can be,
and have sex with the insides of people's bodies in surgery, during surgery.
Sure, yeah. Look, it happens. That's if you study that hard, you're allowed one outlet, and I would say that's coming in my appendix.
Right.
If you take it out, I think that's fair. You're taking it out of me. You're allowed to fuck anything you take out of me.
I'm going to take out your appendix. First, I'm going to take this out.
This is in the way.
You know what I found? I found a hole in your appendix. And then you just hope that one of the aides or, I didn't mean to say that, or one of the nurses doesn't report it in the log. What you actually did to an appendix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does it feel better now? And also, I'm going to safely assume that you don't want to come back for tonsil surgery at any point after finding
That's a good time to get it, and you can go in from the insides, as long as they snip them. You said something that I could not agree with more. You gave percentages, which is fun because how do you give percentages? But you were saying 10% of the comedians are amazing in America.
Oh,
it was strictly American, and 15% are good. And then there's I don't know how it worked out, but like 70% are just not good.
Yes, I did. First of all, you're correct with the statistics. I pull statistics out of my ass. It's a great way to sound quickly intelligent, and it just surmises. The point
so your statistics are shit.
Yeah.
Because anything you pull out of your ass.
Well, I believe that I didn't do like a study of all the comedians, but that was
didn't do the census.
Yeah, I didn't go through them all,
which is not fact based at all, by the way.
No, I was more just in reference to the fact that, like, man, the when you think of the great comedians of ever, right, very few of them are not Americans. Like, when America does comedy best, like, you dominate the world with it, right? You've got the gods, the titans, the kings, and occasionally a Scottish or an English or an Australian will get into those lists when they've rightfully earned
more now than ever, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Now that we're getting, you've got so much options now, and people can now get over to America. And then you've got this tier below that, which are, again, just great. Like, these are the people that are on their way to being part of that titanship, and they're so good, and they've been going for like 20, 30 years. Not even, that's an unfair to give a timeline. I would say you've got some incredible comedians that are only been going for like 10, 15, 5 maybe. But I remember when I started coming over to America, I wasn't immediately allowed to be doing like 20 spots or headline spots. Like, I had to do some of the open mic scene in some places, which is fine. But it was also, when I went from Scotland to the English scene, I had to, even though I was a headliner on the Scottish circuit, I had to start again when I went down to England. I'm like, I just fucking did this up there. And then when I started going out to Australia, it was similar. I'm like, motherfuckers, I've done this. Like, I'm like, I don't need to be doing 5s. And then I go to America and I'm like, I'm bored now. Like, I've done this enough times. And I get it's part of the process, but and I did so many gigs in LA, and that's why I was sort of basing it off on, because Americans as stand-ups, you are so brilliant at early doors. Just, it's all about finding your persona. It's all about finding out who you are immediately, and there's a sense of it that you really don't give a shit when you bomb, or like you have to stick to your material to such a degree, because American audiences are so friendly as well. You've got like 2, 3, 4 minutes where the audience will just sort of sit, and even if you haven't said anything funny, they'll still trust that you will get to say something funny soon. Whereas that does not exist in England and Scotland.
Yeah, that's in your book that people will need to read. You talk about that. People will. It's almost a Gong Show mentality. You were saying that just like you got 5 minutes, and if it doesn't work, it's like it's quiet.
Doesn't work. And and I just think for me, when I watch so many American stand-ups when I'm over there and I'm on, earlier on in my career, I was on just bills with other people. I'm like, man, this is, I don't understand why I'm here. And also I've just seen you do that same set there and there, and they hadn't put more work into it. Like, I think sometimes people watch comedians like Bill Burr, people who are so authentically themselves on stage, that they misunderstand and they think, oh, you just have to be yourself on stage. And you go, no. Bill's so good at what he does that he's convinced you that this is how fucking easy it is, right? The show and the performance is so good that you are missing all of the layers.
Watch it the next night. The premise is, yes, he might be working on another 20 within the hour or 90 that he's working on right now. And he's like has the work ethic that you have. I have that work ethic, but I don't devote it only to stand up. Right now I do, because I'm on a solid tour. But Bill will do it and then add the conversation around it, and that'll change every time he does it. But he still has to get to the setup and to whatever a punchline or a poignant moment is. Yours, I'm fascinated to ask you, do you write it out, or is it verbal on stage, or is it actually written and then you work from that?
So what I normally do is I work from written. Like, I've changed it a bit more in recent years, but what I would do was I'd think of a joke, something funny, and then I'd sit down and, man, I'd rant. Like, I'm a ranter. Like, if something pisses me off or annoys me, like, I'll just complain about it consistently. Mm-hmm. And the only way people would ever listen to my rants were if my rants were funny. So I type them up, learn them, and then would go on stage and record them. And then, like, the next day would come home and, like, have a printed out version of all my jokes, and I'd listen to it all back and follow it on the page. And whenever there was a laugh, I'd do a tick. And whenever there was like an applause break, I'd do like a 2 ticks or whatever. And then I could just see the gaps in the stand-up. I can go, right, so there's a laugh here and there's a laugh here, and then there's all this lines here. This needs to be tightened up. Like, I'm not that interested. If I want to keep people's attention for this long, it's got to be punchy. And if I'm talking for too long without a punchline, then I'm becoming self-indulgent, which I'm very prone to do on occasion. Whereas now, and it was watching so many American comedians with their approach to, this inherent trust that, fuck it, I'm funny. It's not my jokes that are funny.
Yeah,
it's I am funny. Whereas I'm more in the camp of my jokes are funny and I'm good at selling them. Watching so many Americans just do it in the way of finding 1,000 different ways to the same punchline, it's encouraged me and inspired me to be a little bit less static with my jokes, and less like, it makes me want to not write them down as much as I did before. Instead, have a bit more freedom with them and more sort of trust in myself to be able to, riff on it. Because Americans, I mean, you riff all the time, whereas me, not a riffer.
So no, it's incredibly scientific the way you do it. I have trouble listening to myself, and others have trouble listening to me as well. But I can't listen to the tapes. No, sorry, the MP3 from the night before. Yeah. But you're able to do it without wincing too much. Yeah,
I am, because it's just clinical for me at that point, and also like in a kind of like narcissistic way. Man, I'm still so happy that I'm a comedian. Like, it still blows my mind.
Yeah,
that, like,
it won't end. That will not stop.
And And so as much as I hate the sound of my own voice, and when I listen to myself back and I realize how much I swear and how much I stutter and how fucking monotonous my voice is and everything, I am able to just look past that, because like I used to listen to stand-up so much when I was a kid. It just in the car with my dad, or when I was on the bus on the way to school, and I'd listen to comedians telling these jokes and audiences laugh. And then when I'm listening to them back, I'm like, it's me. I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing I always loved, and that doesn't get old. I mean, it's hard to listen when I'm bombing, but like I still like the excitement of when a new bit goes well. It doesn't rip.
No, it's
but
amazing. It can be one joke, or it could be, if it's a 5-minute thing, that's like, holy shit, I just gave birth, you know?
Yeah, and I want to, because I, in the moment, I know I'm appreciating it, but because I'm on stage, my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour of what's the next line? Is there anything I can say there? To listen to it back, and then, you know, hear the the jokes that, oh, maybe they did laugh at that, maybe there's something there, and maybe we can expand that a bit more. I've always enjoyed the process of writing, and yeah, I think it's great fun.
With your U.S. tour coming up, and I'm sure it's when you're doing, I know you have, right now at this moment, you have one more Edinburgh date left, which is, what's the last date? Is it the 27th?
Yeah, 27th or 28th.
I know so much.
You know as much as I do.
No, I can't. Let me tell you your schedule. But I find that when you're doing every single night, then there's less need to record. And I do record and listen sometimes, because you've got it fresh. It's that moment.
Yeah. I mean, on tour, I don't record the shows much, and I should. But that's when I find myself getting static. I should actually, you know, try and mix it up.
But then all you do is listen to yourself.
That's all. Maybe that's why I'm bored of it.
Now, you we started to talk about your fiance, personal lives. I don't often.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a tabloid kind of guy, but how you've had relationships, and I was married 23 years ago. We got divorced, and I gained about only 2 minutes of material. When I got married at that age,
definitely not worth it.
It's not. At 26, when I married her, it was 20 minutes. It was fantastic. The divorce, I got 2 to 5 maybe. But
she got the rest. She got the 20 of it.
She got it. Everything. She worked out well, but the settlement was like, she got it 55 minutes.
Oh, man, bro. Great show as well.
Actually, there was a chapter in my book, Dirty Daddy, where we had a horrific birth of my first child, and I talk about it, and I sent it to both.
I've told that joke, that what you say to Paul Provenza, I have told that to so many.
And that started so much trouble for me. And now I can say I'm sorry to people, but it's how my wife almost died.
Yeah.
And she's in a hospital, and she was at home. She just came home. And I'm holding my baby, who almost didn't survive either during this horrific accident in the hospital. And that's where the joke came from. But that they take it out of context, and all of a sudden you're a pedophile because you're making a joke. And it was simply out of tragedy.
Yeah, there was
not appropriate for most people to say that if they were there.
But the second you put the story in the context of what it is, which is, this is me having recovered from, one of the scariest, most terrifying, life-changing moments in my life. And also Paul Provenza, who is unoffendable. Like, that's another thing people.
Yeah, he likes it a little bit too much.
He does. And if Paul Provenza's standing at your door and you've got the chance to try and make him laugh, say something horrible, stronger men have failed.
There's 19 topics I've opened.
Yeah.
2 majorly unfinished. One is the fiance. So you dated people, and you're only 30, correct?
Yes. So
and that's amazing. And you're born September 11th, correct?
Yes. Yep. That was my birthday.
And you're a comedian, which I believe I'm calling us third responders now.
Yeah.
Because we have to make people laugh, because we do.
Yeah.
Because we do.
Yeah. If we didn't, we'd just be sad all the time.
Well, and you're a gift. I mean, there's nobody like you, which is That's the other thing that's so unique. So tell me about how you met her, if you want. Tell me whatever you're comfortable with.
I shall.
And
I've
her cell
been-
number. I want her cell number.
I can give you that. Wait, like her T cell count or her mobile?
Please. Yeah, I definitely want that. I mean, don't tell me the T cell count first, then I'll decide if I want her phone number.
That's fair. Yeah. I need to find out if she's a match for me. Otherwise, why would I take her kidneys?
I also want to, can you get me your ancestry.com info?
I could, but that's always a gamble here because if we end up related, it's too late to take it back.
Oh, you know, is she Scottish?
Yeah.
Oh, you're related.
Yeah, but it
goes back.
It's all about how far back. Like if it's 3 generations. But
if you're wearing woolly mammoth fur, you're fine.
Yeah. If that's what you're using as some form of condom, then maybe we're saying. I'd written Jigsaw when I was like 25, and that was the show that's about relationships and breakups and love and everything. And I'd gotten out of a very, very toxic, horrible relationship, and I just had this like newfound love of freedom and this sort of, hatred of being in an incorrect relationship and forcing yourself into staying into a relationship because, it's just, that's what society says. And it's just the easiest thing to do. And then I was like, I'm just going to be selfish for the next bit of my life. Like, I'm just going to take time to work out what I'm after, what I want, which is all the things that I'd been saying in a Jigsaw. And because I'd been in a relationship where somebody didn't like who I was, they kept trying to change me. And because I didn't like who I was letting them change me. But they weren't changing me into a version of myself that I liked. They were changing me into a version of me that they liked, which made me not like myself more. And then coming out of this, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I want to, like myself and then find someone who genuinely just loves me, and in a very lazy way as well. Like, I'm not doing it I want them to love me for who I am, so I never have to work on myself again. That's the goal.
Exactly the same, and it's absurd.
Yeah, and
I think most people are like that at their simplest. Even people that might not understand what we're saying, that they don't want to. You have to do the work, and you have to own your shit, which is hard sometimes, because then I go, oh no, I did this. Then you have to really apologize and really mean it and really understand it. And then I'm finding myself now just flat out, hi, I'm Bob. I'm sorry. I just go right to the apology because I know there's going to be a problem with the exchange.
Yeah, I know what I'm like. I know what I'm capable of saying and doing, and I know I'll do it at some point. So I'm sorry I'm here.
So she loves you. She gets you for all this.
She does. She and she saw me at both of my like fucking worsts. Like we started dating when I was on tour with X, and that was like an 18-month around the world tour. So we saw each other barely at all. So whenever she did see me, I was either like hugely stressed out or just like drunkenly phoning her from a country that I didn't want to be in, just like at 3 a.m, just decompressing. And
were you FaceTiming?
Yes, yeah. She's seen me fall down drunk in most of the most famous streets in the world. She's seen me fall down several times in New York. I phoned her like vodka drunk from a bath in Russia just after the shows there. And like that, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not normally like this. And she's like, well, I hope so, but I believe you. And then the tour
40
ended.
more calls later.
Yeah, I could change.
I'm not like this.
And then the pandemic fucking happened 3 months later. So we had like 3 months where we were like, oh, I'm off the tour now. We can finally be in our relationship. And, we've been together for like 2 years at that point. And then the pandemic kicked off. And then I went through just the opposite of, which is now I've got no work. And if I'm not a stand-up comedian, what on earth is my fucking worth on this planet? Right. This thing that I've done for so long, like this thing that I've done since I was 15, 16, this thing that I've loved since I was 5, I'm now no longer able to do. And I've done it so intensely for the last 5 or 6 years that this is a very weird, arrogant thing to say, but it's the only way I can really explain it. I had like 5 years of very intensely being Daniel Sloss, comedian. And then what the pandemic forced was I was just Daniel again. And it had been a while since I'd been him. Like I didn't have the, all my confidence came from how good I was at my job and the fact that I was walking out on stage to these rooms full of people.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And then it's not there. And it feels so pathetic to how much that really sincerely affects your personality and your view of yourself. And I just had several bits of crisis of confidence during lockdown, being like, oh God, maybe I can't do this anymore. And she was there through all of it. And man, she loved that side too. She found it very amusing, like, which is good. You're not actually having a panic attack or freaking out or losing your mind when your partner's laughing during it.
Right.
Like you're talking about your insecurities. And if they're laughing, it means your insecurities are fucking insane.
Oh, they're insane. Right. And it's the opposite when you're working and when you're also very strong geared to what your end goal is, which is to take this 90 minutes and refine it into something that is I've never done before, challenge myself. That's very empowering for yourself.
Yeah.
But now you don't have that. Were you writing? You were podcasting, right?
Yeah, I do a podcast with my best friend and my support act on tour. So we've been on tour. We've toured together for like 8 years.
What's his name?
His name's Kai Humphreys. And he's fucking excellent, man. But we've toured together for so long now. We'll tour together for forever. So we have this podcast called Sloss's Humphreys on the Road, which obviously changed to just being us just doing it during the fucking pandemic.
Right.
We still do it now because now we're back on the road again, and now we get to visit all these new places and because we do live a very unique life, and it's
right.
And it's you want to share these stories, but there's always that very fine, difficult line of what is telling a funny story and what is bragging about how much fun I'm having.
Right.
And
is your fiance going to go with you
on tour? She'll come for bits. Like there's parts of on the American tour, like there's parts that I'm desperate for her to come to because there's just some parts of America I wanted to see. So much of Texas.
Yeah, which place? Texas.
Texas is a big one. Like
right.
I'd never gone there before the last tour. You hear all this stuff about Texas in the news and what it's meant to be. And then you get there and it's like some of it's the same, but it's mostly fucking different. The food is incredible. Like I can't believe how sincerely good Texas barbecue is. It blew our minds. The people are so friendly. They genuinely say y'all. Like they say it sincerely. It's not a bit. They all do it. And I want her to, I'm like, come and meet the Americans that are just, the big, friendly, so confident in themselves. And
it makes me happy to hear you say this because I'm a guy who, look, I don't talk political. I try not to. I try to be a humanist. It's not a word, but I asked my agent when we were going back. I said, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have all this in me. I need to make people laugh. And I know you feel that this and with the shows you've been doing. How long have you been back? Like 3 months able to do shows?
Yeah. I got to go to Australia early on in the year. So I've actually been back for about 4 or 5 months now. So
got it. Like and still that appreciation of getting to go back. It's like you're starting anew again where you really love it, right?
Yeah, man. And to have it taken away from us, to not be able to do what is truly must be one of the top 5 jobs in the fucking world. It does give you a perspective, like all the stuff I was complaining about when I was busy and on the road and stuff, you suddenly realize they're like, okay, there were legit reasons to be like stressed and worried, but it's always, always, always worth it for the 90 minutes that you're on stage. Like that's because the reason I never say I'm overworked, or I don't like saying I'm overworked when I'm on tour, is because I only work 90 minutes a day. But those 90 minutes are the best part of the fucking day. And that's the opposite with all other jobs. Like most other jobs are you work 10, 12, 14, 16 hours, and those are the worst bits of your day. And you're just looking for the free time in between. Whereas stand-up, opposite. If I'm on tour, I'm traveling for the day, it can be fun, but airports are shit and the food's crap.
Yeah, and people are gonna flick a booger in your mouth, and you're gonna end up with the
people
COVID
fart
again.
on planes. I'm obviously going to make a 9/11 joke. People are going to stare at me. It's all going to be an awkward situation.
Right, and we have similar subject matter too. You'll throw an abortion joke in there just to quiet down. But there has to be a reason for it. You know, we can't just do these things because it is so sensitive. You'll find that out. Well, I'm sure you know all this because you've been everywhere. But Texas and Florida, it's a sensitive subject when it comes to that stuff. But audiences you're gonna have, audiences I have there, they're so lovely. They're so appreciative. They're not just a bunch of shit kickers going yee-hoo. And I was in Nashville. You're gonna go to New Nashville, right?
Yes, yeah, I love Nashville.
You got to have their barbecue too. They have amazing food.
Oh, all of the South. Like, we're not at a point where like me and Kai on the last tour, that was the first time we'd ever had American barbecue. And like every southern state we went to, we tried it there. And obviously they've all got their rivalries with each other. They're like, ours is better than theirs. Ours is better than theirs. Whereas we were like, man, we've just discovered this. Like, all of this is superb to us. We couldn't possibly be at a place where we could confidently say this is better than that. Whereas now I trust the locals implicitly when it comes to, like, my fans. What's the best barbecue in this area? What's the best boozer to drink in? What's the funnest sort of place? And also with American audiences, I guess this is true for them around the world, but I want my audience to know that it's absolutely fucking fine to disagree with me politically. Jesus Christ. Like, we're different people. Why would you not? I don't even respect most of my opinions on politics. Like, I'm not I've got opinions. I've got opinions that I strongly and firmly believe about certain people's rights and whatnot. But when I'm on stage and I'm talking, that is all in the guise of jokes and comedy.
Right.
And I love when audiences are able to you can hear me do jokes about a certain subject that politically they don't align with, but they understand it's just the fucking joke. In the same way that, Bill Burr's got a bunch of jokes that I don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with his opinion on them. I don't agree with his stance. I laugh all the way through because I appreciate the jokes. And
if you talk to Bill about it, he will then go, "Oh yeah," and he will say, "I was misinformed," or not often because it's his opinion. And he also doesn't want to go backwards. He's always moving forward and always writing new concepts.
You're allowed to be wrong in your life. Of course, we're deeply flawed human beings. None of us are perfect. We make mistakes, and we have to grow. And I think,
how are you so fucking young and know all this? It took me years, and then I had two friends that said you got to go to this therapist that they were seeing, and I finally went, and it saved my life because I'd had so much death. I know you lost a sister. I lost two sisters, and I know you have a thing where I can out-death you.
But you can out-death me.
I can out-death you, man.
You really can.
Two dead parents, two dead sisters. My parents lost 4 kids. It's really funny. I always go, please save your laughs till the end as I name all my dead relatives. My uncle's heart attacks at 40 from smoking, by the way. Just want to say on your...
I've stopped now.
How many were you smoking today?
Oh, I was never like on smoker, but like when I was on tour, I would smoke. I would say maybe anywhere between 5 and 10, and then the second I came back from tour, I'd stop and I'd never do it again. It was just always a stress thing.
Got it.
Or a drinking thing. So even though I was a smoker, I was one of those smokers that they never considered themselves a smoker.
What was your cigarette?
What
was your favorite cigarette?
Oh man, I mean, I'm about to menthol cigarettes. Any of the man,
because they make your breath better.
Real smokers rightfully roast me for this. Like, it's just like, that's worse than vaping to them.
Yeah, it's like a joke. It's like infused vodka that you buy.
Yeah, but man, I prefer infused vodka to normal
Sometimes.
Yeah. Man, there's just something about a menthol cigarette and a coffee that's kind of like brushing your teeth. Tobacco doesn't taste great. It was just, I was always in it for the nicotine, man. It was that. It wasn't the flavor, it was the rush.
We have a lot of similarities just in our nature. You have wonderful parents. I had wonderful parents.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad loved each other.
They do. Too much. Like, very, very...
In front of you?
Very openly. Yeah, one of my dad's favorite jokes, like when we were young, like if we were out in America, and sometimes we'd have to like share a hotel room because they're not buying a fucking spare hotel room for their 9 or 10-year-old kid. So I think it's maybe it must have been about 10 or 11. We're in a hotel room, and whenever they would turn the lights off, my dad would just start going, "Ree, ree, ree, ree," and just make sex noises. And I'd be like, "Don't." He's like, "Well, I'm obviously not doing it," and I'm like, "But even." Don't bring the idea into my fucking head at any point. Even if you're doing it as a joke, don't do it. And I can just hear my mum in bed laughing beside him. And I'm like, that's where I fucking get it from. Like that's the problem.
It's not a hard thing to figure me out either. My dad we'd be burying a relative, and he would turn to me and he would he farted. At one of our families, I'm trying to think, it wasn't one of his brothers. Those were hard to take at the moment of, but it was a cousin, and he farted, and I went, "What?" He says, "I've got to get the poison out of my body, son." And they're lowering the body into the ground, and that's the gallows humor that helped us survive.
He couldn't time it with them lowering it down, just.
No, he just had one quick out. It had a button. It was sealed in a little bow. I had a cousin named Tootsie, and there was an old song, "Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye," very famous old song. And she had polio. There was no vaccine, which of course none of us believe in vaccines. You wrote about that as well, which I really loved.
Yeah. Which is why. It's amazing. I mean, we also have our problem over here. Like there was a lot of smugness from the UK being like, look, because before COVID, Americans weren't taking the vaccine, and we were like, look at those idiots. And then the vaccine came out over here, and there's been a lot of British people that are just not getting it. We're like, right. Oh, okay, they're everywhere.
Right. Maybe it's time to thin the herd. I hate those expressions.
Yeah, just devoid of compassion, fully misunderstanding the whole point of the whole situation. And also, man, I get distrust of the government.
100%. 100%.
Of course, I get that. But I'm like, but I don't distrust science. And science isn't like this big god for me. But it's my trust in science is trust in human beings. I trust that in these institutes of scientists, all of them are doing, like, none of them are evil. None of them are in there for the fucking horrible monitoring.
Some doctors are evil, like your portrayal of them in X is accurate. Oh, yeah. No, not in X, in that Dark, other. Yeah. Sorry. I'll memorize all your stuff soon and be doing it. But doctors do have that. I had one case with one of my sisters that died of a disease, scleroderma, and he had a God complex, and he didn't know what he was doing, and that's why I joined the Scleroderma Research Foundation and tried to help people because it's their ego. I just don't, and this is not a time for that.
Yeah. When you're saving lives, it should be about the one on the table as opposed to your one, essentially. Yeah.
So now you have been with your fiance now for 2 years. Is that correct?
4 years now.
Oh God, my math is bad and my retention. Do you have a wedding date set?
Yeah, May 2023.
That's very good.
So we wanted to be far enough away that like COVID wasn't going to interfere with any of it.
So you could all just enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that the only ring I want at my wedding is all of us doing a human centipede. But it's a big ring. And obviously you can't do that in COVID regulations.
Well, no, and you can't wear a mask and do it properly.
No, of course, absolutely pointless.
You're sewn to the other person, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were talking one thing I wanted to resolve, which is how much we love comedians that are good and how special it is. And you were saying in your book how, again, out in October, that anybody that doesn't watch other comedians is, I guess, a fool. I don't think you use those words, but it really doesn't. You don't know yet. If you haven't watched the great comedians, you'll steal. You won't even know you're stealing. You'll hear it from someone, and then you like to be around comedians where you are talking with them and saying, "Does this sound familiar to you? Is this someone else?" And I do that when I'm around other comedians.
I think it's such an important thing. Like I got into stand-up comedy because I love stand-up comedy. I love the art of it. I love like one person, one microphone, just trying to make an audience laugh. And I understand people not wanting to be influenced. That's what they say. I don't want to watch other comedy because I want to be influenced. And I'm like, well, how the fuck do you expect to be good if you're not influenced? You're not like a fucking prodigy. You're not gonna just come up. You have to know the art form. And also everyone was influenced by everyone. Like it's a matter of like, if you look at who inspired you, you can look at the comedians that inspired them. Like you can follow the line of, like, if you were inspired by Dave Chappelle, you are therefore inspired by Tony Woods because Tony Woods inspired Dave Chappelle.
Or Richard.
Richard Pryor, of course. And then you can take it back over the years all the way to comedians from the 30s. Like we're all inspired by someone, and you've got to, like, it's almost impossible to be a stand-up straight out of the gate. So many comedians, when we start, we're just doing an impression, a very bad impression of the comedians we loved watching growing up. And then that's when you get used to being on stage and crafting jokes and performing them, and then your voice slowly begins to creep in, and then you kind of just shed it a little bit and you come into your own form. And I still love watching stand-up because there's two sides to me. One, there's like a competitive side, which is, man, I want to be one of the best. Like I love comedy so much.
I would say that you are, but I am telling you, you definitely are going to be. You're 30 fucking years old and you're doing skills that a 45-year-old just got, you know?
I know, but what if I lose my mind, and not in the good way? Because there's some comedians that lose their minds and become better, but I could
just take care of yourself. And you know, well, do you go to therapy? Do you go to therapy?
I do.
Do you like your therapist?
I do. I'm changing therapists now because I went to therapy after the X tour just because I didn't like who I'd become, because I was just so I just lost my way with myself for a long bit of that tour, and I didn't like the way I was speaking to my loved ones and my friends. And I met my therapist, and he was great, and I was with him for about a year and a half, and then we kind of got like to the end of all of my problems, like the issues that I went in with, right? And then we kind of lost contact because I went to Australia, and then I didn't message him, and he didn't message me, and I'm like, well, if he's not messaging me, then I must be cured.
My relationship with the person that helps me with my relationships is no longer. I mean, there are chapters that close with that.
But man, I want to get another. I want to get another therapist, because I do just think it's my last therapist was great. I remember one time I went into a session with him, and he was like, "Hey, how are you?" And I was in a really good place. I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm good. I've had a great week. Like, this has all been fine." And after about 10 minutes of talking, he was like, "Okay, we're not gonna do a session today." He's like, "I'm not going to make you think about like, if you're in a good mood and you're happy and things are going well, let's not look for problems when there are none." And I was like, wow, that's a really good.
But you should, my opinion, being a little older than you, lifetime older, is to really think about, is something upsetting me today? Am I going through a rough time? Because you know when you hit a wall. Yeah, we all know it, and then you don't have to. You just, because you paid for a session, unless he didn't make you pay for it.
No. So for those ones, there's times where you go, "I'm not charging you to."
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I pay mine in Bitcoin and Doge.
Oh yeah.
NFTs.
Yeah. But
because therapy is not real to some people, so why should the money be?
Which I always find that. I mean, I did have I think a bit when I was younger. It wasn't that I didn't believe that it didn't work, but I just didn't. I always just had it for mental people, for people that are insane, that have lost their minds, or that people that have gone through really deep trauma, or that it's for veterans that have got PTSD and all these things. And you sort of just go, well, that's who therapy's for. I can't go to therapy with my own little problems, because I'll be taking therapy away from somebody who needs it more than me, which is an absolutely batshit way to look at therapy.
And it's silly also because a lot of people can't even afford therapy, which is incredibly unfortunate, because that's what most human beings could really be helped with.
Yeah. I mean, we've got free healthcare in the UK, and it blows my mind that
if we had free healthcare in the United States, people would call us Marxists and socialists, and
a lot of I hear Americans using the term communist and socialist a lot without actually knowing what either of those things are.
they have no idea. They don't know.
No, they just know they hate socialists. So they can tell you what it is, but they know they hate.
No,
socialists.
there's no education on anything, and all the expressions are all the same on any news channel. Even it's not really news. It's I don't know what it is anymore. It's just trying to get numbers. Intel comes out of it, but a lot of people say, "Well, this is a lot to unpack." I'm like, "Are you staying overnight?" I mean, I don't know where these expressions. Are you on the road or are you in the overhead?
Yeah.
You're going to have more airplane material. I'm sorry to tell you. You're just going to have it.
Yeah, that's the fucking worry. I mean, there was a time after COVID, well, when we were gigging during COVID, when nobody could do airplane material because it was an outright lie.
Right.
It's the only time in like the past 60 years of comedy that nobody said airplane jokes. So you go, I was on an airplane the other day. No, you fucking weren't. No one was.
So I was in line at this market, and there were 5,000 people in the market.
Boo, liar.
Market's been boarded up from riots.
Yeah.
Oh, what a world. But I just want to go back real quick to one other thing that I was same-minded, which is a lot of comedians, and you said there's less of it in Europe. You said that there just is, and in Scotland, and I think you said Australia too. I'm not sure that the comedians are just there aren't as many people just deciding to be a comedian, hang up the shingle, do the same 20 minutes for 10 years. Is that kind of accurate, you think?
Well, I think I get very precious sometimes with stand-up when I don't like when people use it as a stepping stone into another career.
Most people do. They want a sitcom, or they want to host a show, or they want to be a movie star, or writer.
Yeah, and it's fine to want those things, but like there's just part of me where I love stand-up as an art form so much, and as the craft of what it is, and that I don't mind stand-ups that get their own sitcom or become presenters and still do fucking stand-up, but I do get really pissed off when I just see somebody that do stand up and they become a TV presenter. And I'm like, you were never a fucking comedian. Like you used my career, my art form as a fucking stepping stone into your one. And it doesn't affect me as much, but because I know how hard it is to get stage time in some places, and that you are just directly fucking taking work out of another person's diary for something that they're passionate about. It's career. It feels like career theft a lot of the time, and I shouldn't care because
no, you shouldn't, because some of them actually entertain people. There are a couple giant stars that sell, and there are not many that sell out 10,000 seats or 20,000 seats, and I respect that. I do, and then I find a lot of comedians that they are similar to, that are nowhere near as huge as them, just learn the tricks, which is to walk the stage like a lion, to pause, to make a face, to do some kind of, it's just stuff that they've acquired, and they've learned the beats of how you show how comfortable you are with a giant stage and in a giant place or a small place. And that's the thing that's off-putting for me is sometimes I usually take my friend Mike Young with me on tour, like you take your buddy, and mainly because we have sex. And
same, man. It's just easier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it doesn't count as cheating if they're the same sex as you.
And let's face it, it's called opening for you.
Yeah. So I tried to keep a straight face during that one.
unless you're the one that opens for him afterward. So,
and he hasn't had a tight five for years.
That's so good. If he's got a tight 10, you could be hurt. You could be. You wouldn't be able to sit. You'd need a rubber cushion.
he's one of those comedians that doesn't sit down. Not because it's not his style, it's not worth the pain.
Right. I want to tell everybody that your theater tour has just been announced. Hubris. You chose that name because it's a negative connotation, right?
Yeah, well, it's if you Google the word hubris, it means excessive pride or self-confidence, which I've absolutely been prone to on occasion in the past. But the reason I actually named it is because for me, it comes from Greek mythology, and what hubris was whenever a mere mortal compared himself or herself to a god and brought the ire of the gods on them. So it was if you got too confident in what you were doing and you thought you were the best at something, that you were suddenly given hubris was always the thing that happened before your fall.
Yeah.
And because I decided to call it hubris, because I've done 4 shows in a row, Dark, Jigsaw, Socio, and X, which all are like story shows where there's like a big point at the end, and I talk about, dark subjects and taboo things and have a message in it. And this show, I just wanted to do just stand-up. So I just wanted to go just back to fucking jokes, just jokes. That's it. We've all had a rough fucking 2 years. Like I did an entire 18-month tour about sexual assault. Like I want to go back to just jokes. And this in itself is my hubris.
That's wonderful. So it's also you being a little wicked, and
just a little bit. Like it's probably, I wouldn't say my most offensive show, but like I just talk about subjects that I've wanted to make jokes about for a while, and I also push boundaries, literally just for the sake of pushing boundaries. Like it's a bit, I'm going to say this because I can, and I will justify it afterwards. And
right,
I've also said all these I've spoken about so many dark things before that my audience now hopefully have a trust that if I'm talking about something, they know I'm joking. They know enough about my character to know that this isn't malicious or evil.
That's such a good feeling because my audiences know that. I've been in their living rooms, literally. I mean, I've been in people's living rooms. It's one of my vices. I break and enter Uranus.
Yeah.
But for people to know you and like they know you from your specials, they already know where you're coming from. So
yeah,
it's like
it's the funnest thing. Like I love the start of your career when nobody knows who you are and like you've just got this fire under your ass to like I have to stand out on this bill. Like I've got to be the best on it, and I've got to make sure that people remember my name, and that's great, and that creates this drive in you. But there's also just something so nice. You do that for the moments where you walk on stage in front of a room full of people who are just so very, very excited to see you. And especially after all this, they've not been able to see you for 2 or 3 years. And, I was as a kid, I was such a huge comedy fan. Like I used to love the act of, I'd go to my local theatre, I'd get the brochure, I'd work out when the stand-up was coming to my local town, I'd book tickets with my dad, I'd be looking forward to it for like months, and then I'd get there and I was in a room like 600 people, probably smaller because it was fucking Fife in Scotland, but this comedian who I'd watched on telly and who I loved was in front of me 30 yards away doing material I'd never heard. And I loved it. I just loved it. Whenever I'm having a rough time on stage, or if I'm not doing as well as I want to be doing, when you just start going, this could be going better. I try to put myself back into the audience, being like, man, for you on stage is a very different experience from what your audience is going through. Like, yes, there's the occasional judgy person who's not going to fucking enjoy your shit, but most of the time, if they're your fans, they're just so happy to be there and don't take that for granted.
I'm of exact same mind. And I'll look in the audience sometimes and I'll see someone not smiling. They're just sitting there. And then I will talk to them sometimes. And that's always the one person or the two
they
people.
Stand out. You can find them.
And I go, "Are you okay?" And it's kind of your old opening. Hope everybody's well. I mean, considering that this COVID thing, which has affected so many people. I mean, I'm sure people too. We've all lost people to it. I wish it was a funnier name. It's just not.
Yeah, well, they tried to with Corona, and then
Yeah.
I now imagine working in a bar must be the worst thing in the world right now, because the amount of people that think they're doing the original joke of being like, "Can I get a Corona? Hold the virus." Like that must just be 20 times a day. And that's how you earn your tip for laughing at that fucking joke for the
I think most people that do that joke end up on a respirator. It's just God's way. That you also
like,
did.
Bad. I heard you do it. Come on. That joke is 18 months old now. Come on, be reasonable.
So I'm just going to say what your tour is, because people need to know. You're doing one of my favorite theaters with a Wilbur in Boston.
Yeah.
You're doing the Warner Theater, one of the best. I love it, in D.C. The Beacon Theater in New York. It's a nice, big, beautiful theater. You're going to be in Philly, St. Louis, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Indianapolis. You're all over the place. You're in Ohio. You're in New Hampshire. You're in San Diego. That's a great place. Portland and Phoenix and Denver. Just all you have to do is go to danielsloss.com, right?
That's it. That's all. And then all my
And now the book, what it's titled, I'm a little confused, because it was Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die is not. Am I wrong? I mean, I went through half of it, not skimming at all in it, and then I got very busy because I had to look at all the other volumes of 40 hours of stuff that you've done, because you're a prolific motherfucker. I didn't mean to say that about your mom. That's an American expression.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay. Wait a minute. So are you saying?
You've already told me that you're my father, and I've spent the time. This has been a really great reconciliation for me to come to terms with that, and I can see our similarities.
I can too. And please tell your mother that I am late on 2 checks. I am sorry. Because I still pay her for what she did for me.
Yeah.
But Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die is not really a subject of the book, really.
No, it's. I mean, the official title of it is Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die, and Other Comforting Thoughts on Family, Friends, Sex, Love, and More Things That Ruin Your Life. I guess it's just it's about relationships, but like
it sure is.
But different types of relationships. It's just they gave me an opportunity to write down many of my horrible opinions and many of my nice opinions about love, the world, and how I think it works.
Well, I can't wait to. You'll be making Hubris into a special, I would imagine.
I think we'll be filming it, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I'm also now at the point where, like, I'm looking forward to writing another show, or maybe I'll just start mixing this one up a bit more.
I have to say, you're also a good actor, and you can tell. You can just.
Oh man, please tell everyone in Hollywood.
Well, no, but is that something you want to do? I would assume it would be, but I know you're driven for stand-up. But wouldn't you like to do a television show that suited you, or a movie part that was right?
But the key bit there is suited me. Like every time I've gone for auditions in LA, my American agents have to pay so much patience. I can't do I know we said earlier I could do an American accent, but I can't do an acting American accent. This is my voice, and this is what I sound like. And I really enjoy acting, but it would need to be one of those roles where it's, if I'm focusing on doing an accent, I'm not focusing on the lines or the comedy, the timing. Like if you want a really good actor, look anywhere in LA. But if you want like one of the funnier ones, like that would be like me. I know where my talents are, and it's the comedic side of things.
Well, I'm gonna put this out there that you're a little bit, I would say, incorrect in a couple things. One is if a director of note or a producer of note said no, Daniel has to be this character, and it's a significant character, they would, as before they're in pre-production, before they're in even getting ready to do anything, get you a dialogue coach. And if you work on something from the way you do your stand-up and the way you write, you would have 4 months, 5 months, 6 months of a dialogue coach, and you'd get the dialect. You just would get it. So that's one thing that you'd have to put up with if that happened. The other thing is, as far as like shows on all the streamers, whether it be an Amazon or Netflix or wherever the hell it is. Nobody is caring. I mean, it's very fashionable to be anything but American in a lot of these shows. I mean, British actors are often, and Scottish actors are often, some of our favorite actors to watch in the world right now. There's been a huge shift, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do it. I loved doing comedy acting when I was younger, and I did theater stuff. It's definitely something I want to get back into. But
I think you will. You will do it, and it'll just happen. It's one of those things because you're doing everything. I'm just saying, it's so nice to talk with you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this.
Oh man, I can't thank you enough for having me on and for reading the book and for such a lovely. It's been a genuine honor and a privilege to do this. It was. I've been looking forward to it for a week. So
that is so. Man, I'm so honored to hear that. I couldn't finish the book because I was no. What happened was that around page 140, the pages got stuck together, and I mean, it was really. I really liked it.
Yeah, so I had the same problem with your book, but what's weird is mine is on Kindle, so that shouldn't be happening.
But that's just a good cloth and some Windex, and you clean that right off. When I did my book talk, have you had those planned for the books?
So the tour is part, I think for some of the parts of the tour I'll be doing you can buy tickets to the tour with a book involved, and that comes, and then there's a meet and greet afterwards, and I think there will be hopefully some of that, but I'm not 100% certain yet.
Are you going to do? And you don't know because of what COVID is and what changes with the tour and with book signings. But would you be doing a Q&A with a moderator for the book in different countries?
I mean, I don't know. I'd like to. That sounds class.
That's what they do, and I think it merits it. It depends. They might do a virtual one, but I don't know. You're going to do a ton of interviews, that's for sure, so you're going to be on shows. I had, right before this week tonight, did I do that right? John Oliver.
Last week
tonight, thanks. I have a photographic memory. Oliver John, he I'm dyslexic. He that's below my abilities, that line. But John Oliver he moderated the book talk for Dirty Daddy at the 92nd Street Y in New York. And he had 1 million Post-its. This is how his mind works throughout the book. And all he wanted to do was read chapters. He didn't want to talk about all the deaths in it and love and meaning of life and stuff, but he wanted to read about me being afraid as I get older that I would have leakage that would come out of me and drain from my penis, and I would slip on it on the stairs and I would meet my death that way. And he read a page and a half of that and laughed throughout. I think half the audience was horrified and the other half were laughing hysterically. Yeah. In that aristocrat's way, but that's not the full context of the book. But your book is kind of, we write in a similar cadence. It's really fascinating, your life and what your life is going to be.
Oh, well, so, let's see how much I've got left. Who knows at this point?
You got a lot. You just take care of yourself because you got to live to 100 because you should live till you can't stop shitting your pants.
That's the goal.
I just want to thank you again, and I'll be seeing you.
So much.
I'll see you in LA. Have a great night. Say hi to your fiance for me, please.
Will do. Nice to meet you, man. And I'll see you soon.
Well, that is a comedian that is just amazing to me. 30 years old, so prolific, so wonderful. Go to HBO Max. You can watch his special X. His Hubris tour is happening all over the United States. He's been doing it in Edinburgh and all over the world. And you don't miss him. Don't miss him. See him live. Watch his shows. His book comes out in October. I'll read the entire title because I didn't give it fully before. Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die, and other comforting thoughts on family, friends, sex, love, and more things that ruin your life. He is Daniel Sloss. He is so damn funny and wonderful. So enjoy. Go to danielsloss.com. You'll get all of his tour dates. And he's a voice to be reckoned with, and a good soul, and as honest and self-loathing as you want your best friend to be. And he's smart as hell. So that's it. That's another episode of this show. Bob Saget's here for you. That's professional, right? And you want to rate, review, subscribe. That's what you want to do. And then you also want, you can go to the YouTube page if you like a look at a two-shot like late night television. It's there. It's youtube.com/Bob Saget. And, you can download these things. You can do anything. You get them on every one of them, wherever you get your podcasts. No one's ever said that. Every advertiser I have, thank you. Please buy everything they suggest. Anything mental health oriented or hair removal or meat and all the other good stuff. I'm sending my best to you guys. I hope you're getting through this time. That is going to keep going. And as we move forward, we will get better as more crazy shit happens. Just take care of yourselves. Don't let in too much negative. Sending you all actual human love. I'm actually sending you love. Daniel Sloss. Damn it. He is something. Thank you so much. And see you next time.